Constantly shifting through the time-space continuum, Metron's three disciples observe the universe from the Mobius Couch.
Something has changed within me. Something is not the same. I'm through with playing by the rules of someone else's game. Too late for second guessing. Too late to go back to sleep. It's time to trust my instincts, close my eyes, and leap onto the Mobius Couch. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mobius Couch, a time-space interdimensional vehicle from which, by the way, that was Wicked. Anyone's not aware, top Broadway musical about to be a movie. What was I talking about? The Mobius Couch. It's a time-space interdimensional vehicle from which your three hosts survey the world of comic books. I'm Alessandro, and joining me as usual, actually for the first time in a while, joining me are Joe and Patrick. Patrick and Joe, what's up?
We're supposed to say hi together now?
Yeah, it's up to you. You all fight over it.
Hey, Patty.
Hello.
Let's just say hi to each other then. Hey. Hi.
Hey, Joe. How's it going? Is that no? I went the wrong way. Yeah. It's hard.
I hate that. I know. It drives me crazy.
Okay, well, we've also...
Yeah, it's been a while since we've been here. Hi, Al.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Actually, I let me just be a little bit, break my character and be a little bit more transparent emotionally. I'm actually quite happy to be talking to you two tonight because it has been a while since we've been recording.
It has been a long time.
And I enjoy a little talk.
You do tend to.
So it's fun to be, it feels good to be back.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, and we are back tonight, of course. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see what I'm talking about. We are here talking about a seminal comic. I mean, this is right up there on Mount Comic More with The Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen. Everyone who knows anything about comics has, of course, heard about this very important graphic novel, which is Paul Pope's Battling Boy. I was okay with that. That worked.
Oh, what's wrong one?
That worked fine. Talking about Battling Boy, and Battling Boy.
You were okay with it because I timed it right finally. I think.
Yeah, that time it worked. I was actually.
That's what they're for.
Didn't freak me. Didn't scare the shit out of me that time. It worked. Battling Boy. I don't know if you want to tell them, Joe, or I should, but it's an important comic for the two of us specifically because listeners who maybe haven't heard about this in the past, Joe and I first met at a pizza parlor, one of four Atlanta suburban franchises of Alessio's Pizza, where Joe is manager and I was specific. And I was on the wait staff. And Joe's little pet name for me when we worked together was Battling Boy. When I would come in, clock in to work, Joe would say, "Where's my little Battling Boy?" And I'd say, "He's here. He's here." And he'd call me his little BB, his little Battling Boy.
Back in the old ages of 2013,
Yep. So this comic means a lot to the two of us.
Is that true?
No.
I thought he called you his little paper girl.
He did also.
I did call him my little paper girl.
He did. We went through phases of nicknames.
I had a lot of nicknames for Al. When we were young. When he was a young scamp, and I was just a wizened old 20-something manager at Alessio. Yes,
and his little Battling Boy. That was both. I don't know what he called you, Pat, but he called me Paper Girl and Battling Boy.
Yep.
I think just Pat, I think.
So Paul Pope, what do you guys want to do? How do you guys want to talk about Battling Boy?
Well, let's talk about Paul Pope because I recommend anybody listening to this go to Paul Pope's Wikipedia, which I'm fairly certain was written directly by him because it's
no, it's written by his publicist. Come on.
So Paul Pope is an American alternative cartoonist whose work combines the precision and romance of European comic artists with the energy and page design of the manga tradition. End quote. So that's who Paul Pope is.
That sounds like it's lifted directly from like a review on his art.
It sounds like he wrote it himself to make him sound like he's more important than he is.
Yeah, it's the art thesis that you write when you're in college,
Yeah, but so he's written like a lot of kind of, I think, dark horse, like indie stuff. He did a Batman Year 100 run, which I think was like the only mainstream work.
I'm a fan of Paul Pope, so like this was fun for me, and aside from the one thing that Patrick really didn't like about it, which is what I also didn't like about it. And I thought it was, I mean, it seemed like it was a good start to a story. But Paul Pope specific, or just Paul Pope in general, not Battling Boy specific, but there's a lot of life in his drawings. There's a lot of frenetic energy going on, and I enjoy that. And I really like I'm a big fan of the really heavy inking that he does, and there's a lot of brushwork in it. It's not just pen, you know, and it's not digital for the. I mean, I think this is colored digitally, but it at least starts with his inks and pencils. I don't know. I just really I've enjoyed some of his more indie books in the past. So of course, when I saw he was writing a new thing, I jumped on it. But this was, you know, over 10 years ago, and volume 2 has never come out.
Yeah, I think so. This came out in 2013 or 14.
Yeah, so I suggested we read something by Paul Pope, and I think Al was the one who was like, "What is this Battling Boy thing?" And then I was like,
"It was the only one."
I couldn't really remember it.
It was the only book that my local library had.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the only book that my library had, which is why we did this.
All right.
Let's just talk about it because, you know, there's no real issue by issue to discuss here. But so as his Wikipedia mentioned, Pope's art, so the aesthetic is very sort of 70s French, you know, Mobius, heavy metal. That
there was also like a blend of Looney Tunes in there as well.
A little bit
weirdly.
That's right. A lot of the
this one gets a little
and enemies
strange.
were kind of Looney Tunes.
Yeah,
you're right, Pat.
He did a comic called Heavy Liquid. He did, like you said, he did the Batman Year 100. I've read all the, and then there's a one called 100%.
Yeah,
and I can't really remember what 100% is about. But Heavy Liquid's about like a drug, and it's just basically like a guy that's like on this new drug. And
oh, okay, because I was going to mention. I mean, Heavy Liquid has to be a reference to Heavy Metal magazine, right?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, it's also just right. So there's like a lot of. Anyway, again, I just enjoy his raw art style sort of thing, and it's just a fun style to me that I enjoy reading. So like, I pick up his books because it's usually just one-off books. And when this one was like, oh, it's volume 1, I was like, oh, interesting. Well, maybe this will still have like a succinct story. And it
so the world building is a little bit bizarre. So first of all, to generally introduce the idea here is Battling Boy, who's does he even have a real name? Like, do we ever
not that I know of?
No,
we ever hear his actual name.
He's just fake Thor's son.
Yeah, but so he's the son of a god, and the gods have sort of a coming of age ritual where they make their kids go out on kind of spirit quests in the mortal realm and defeat, kind of trial by fire, like be a hero and a god and come back when you're ready, I guess, sort of thing.
But also it's implied that like it's when they're 12, and it sounds like most of the kids don't come back alive.
Don't come back. Yeah,
right. It's sort of a it's like
which, you know, again, on the surface, the plot is really fun.
The top kind of thing.
Yeah. On the surface of the plot, it's very fun to read. It's a fun concept. I like where it's going. It just never went anywhere. I think that's basically my main problem with it. This would be a great first installment if there was 4 more installments to read.
Right. Yeah.
And Battling Boy arrives, and not our Earth. He arrives in this other mortal planet that is plagued by monsters.
Yeah, it's a town called, what is it called? It's a city, not a town.
That's a great question.
It's basically like
Arcopolis.
I was just going to say, I think it's Arcopolis, but I mean, it's basically just this huge city that's overrun with all these monsters, and they don't know why. And they had a local hero, and he quickly dies in the beginning. And he was like one of the only things holding the monsters off, because I guess he was the only one who like studied them. And Haggard West is his name, by the way. Haggard's like the only one that like studied the monsters and understood what they were doing and how to fight them, sort of, and kind of like had this way like technology that allowed him to like fly and have laser guns, and he was like helping out the regular military.
He was sort of
relatively overwhelmed by all the monsters.
He was kind of if Batman was the Rocketeer.
Yeah,
sort of.
That's a really good description of him. Yeah.
So the setup,
and his Robin is his daughter basically, and he kind of like takes her along on his adventures, and then as I said, he quickly dies, and then she's kind of thrust. So her story arc is like thrust into this like, should I become him or should I like step aside kind of thing? And she's grieving the whole book, and that's horribly sad. But and then meanwhile, Battling Boy has been sent by his father to the city to like help them with their problem because they lost their hero. you know.
Yeah, and Pope, I think, wrote a comic just about Aurora, correct? Or multiple.
Yeah, there's two Aurora comics, not drawn by him, which is one, disappointing.
Oh,
but
really?
two, it's just like, yeah, if you're not doing it, then what's the point? The guy's very much trying to mimic his art, so I'll give it that. But like, it's not, which is almost sad though, because you're just like, just do your own thing, man. You know, like maybe they tried to find somebody that was similar to his style, so it would like kind of feel the same. I forget. I mean, I started to read one of them. The first, Aurora West is her name, so she has 2 volumes. But I think they're kind of calling it one volume. I don't know. They're doing something weird retconning with the titling of them. Like, kind of, okay, like, this is one thing, you know, or something like that.
Like a prequel, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, but it's a prequel. So it's like her when she's a kid. So that's another thing. It doesn't even like continue this story at all. Like, it just kind of goes back in time and starts telling you about that character. And I'm like, that'd be cool. Again, if I had any more Battling Boy, I'd be very much interested in prequel stuff. Like, kind of like... Well, Something is Killing the Children did, you know, like where they did some solid arcs and it got somewhere, and then they started doing like background stuff on the houses.
Well, so one comment I wanted to make about the general setup is it's a little weird because if you think about sort of traditional stories like this, you have the superpowered kind of god figure who comes to Earth and sort of saves people, but then learns what it means to be human, all that kind of stuff, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger's famous first film, Hercules in New York, which no one remembers anymore, but that was his first movie. But like that kind of story, it has been done many times, right? And then from the other side of it is like Arcopolis itself is this weird sort of sci-fi, fantasy, whimsical otherworld. We've seen versions where a normal human gets transported to that world and like is a window into how does this work? Let's learn about this new place. So that's kind of like the twin streams of separate genres that Paul Pope has sandwiched into one, which is a weird feeling of this powered god coming to learn what it is to be mortal and human in this fantasy world that isn't our human world. Is sort of a weird setup.
I mean, but yeah, that's true. But they are essentially human. It's just a fantastic. I think of it as like a Ghibli movie. Like you kind of understand that, like, you know, Kiki's delivery service doesn't take place on Earth, but you get it. Like, you know what I mean? You're just like, oh, well, that's regular-ish.
Yeah, but that's still different. Place. But I just mean that this is kind of a smash up of two kind of trite genres.
Okay.
Into one the god who comes to our world to learn about being human, and the human who goes to the fantastical world to learn about the fantastical world, but it's just kind of smashed together into just this god goes into another world, and you get all of that kind of mixed up. So it's a little bit of a strange construction.
It also just feels, and I mean, I know Patty's agrees with most of what I'm about to say. It feels like the story just gets going. Like you don't really get like a climactic event. I mean, there is kind of a monster fight and whatnot, and I get it. And there's like a little bit of him going like, okay, I get it now. I need to be careful with my shirts, and I need to like make sure my powers are choosing the right ones, and blah, blah, blah. And then as the story gets towards the end of the book, it shifts to kind of more of the monster's perspective, like this one little gang of like ghoul guys. And you get a little bit of that backstory too, but again, it cuts off with like the last page is basically just him talking to his boss, and he's like, "You need to get that kid." He's like, "I will get that kid," and like that's it. And you're just like, "What the fuck?" Like
well, you're both. I mean, you're both completely right. I mean, this is very clearly a volume 1 introductory.
This is a volume 1 of at least like 5, if not more. It feels like it was supposed to be like 10 volumes, and he wrote 1 volume.
But we don't, basically. Right? But we never get one.
Like the pacing of it. In terms of like how much world building and plot we get, feels very 1 of 10, not like 1 of 3 or something. You know what I mean? Like it feels like this is going to be like this epic story, and you're going to learn more about it as it goes. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And then like you get nothing else, and it's just like, well, okay. Aside from that, I love his art. I've thoroughly enjoyed reading his weird art, and how he draws is fun to me. So
overall, I enjoyed this, and the fact that it just stopped and he didn't finish it, I was like, what? Why does this even exist? Like, Battling Boy is already pretty human. He's like a normal 12-year-old kid whose parents are insane because his dad comes home from a trip. He's excited to see the dad. The dad's like, "Oh, you just turned 12? We're going to chuck you onto this planet of monsters."
Yeah,
with no training.
It seems like the dad, like his absentee father.
Absentee father. But then even the mom is like, "Oh, by the way, here's this cloak. Just keep it close to you. It's magic or something. I'm not going to tell you what it does or whatever, but like, he's 12. They just throw him onto this planet where before that happens, he's playing like some sort of form of baseball. And the other kids are talking about how their siblings went on their excursions and like never came back. So they tell you right up front that like most kids die. They don't come back. So I kind of felt for this kid because when he gets to this monster world, he just wants to prove to his dad that he can kill one monster, thinking that he'll get out of there. And then he has to call his dad to help him kill the monster because he's losing. And the dad's like annoyed that he's bothering. And it was just kind of like all this crazy shit happening. And then
he basically calls his dad on a secret walkie-talkie that only him and his dad know about. So his mom doesn't know his dad can help him. So that's one thing that again never gets fleshed out, but like it's just that's there. And then he calls his dad, and the dad is just like, I don't have time for this, and shoots a lightning bolt from across space-time.
Like,
and it just hits the monster. Yeah, like it hits the monster. And then it's like gone, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, Battling Boy saved us!" And he's like, "Yes, I did." You know, and then you're like, "What?"
So a couple comments. So number one, I just want to say it's a great cloak that his mom gives him.
I think
super ornate and stylish.
It's very Shazam.
If there's listeners of this podcast know if there's one thing I like, it's a well-dressed young man. And that is a classy cloak. It would look great on Akira, like little general children.
Little General Akira, yeah.
Little general children would look great.
It might be his.
The other thing is, but that's kind of not the problem with the book, because again, it's incomplete, but there's so much of the world building that just isn't done yet. You know, for example, why do gods have kids who aren't gods? He seems to just be a normal human.
No, he's not normal human. He's definitely. Yeah, he's definitely.
I guess he does get knocked around, and that's true. He
gets brutalized.
Seriously,
even when his shirt gets ripped off and his powers are quote unquote gone, which we haven't really talked about, but I guess we can get into in a second. But once that, like, he's still like fine, you know. It's
that's
not like
true, because that's true. A human would just be squashed,
would be pulverized against the side of a building.
That's true. Yeah.
But the Hamumbai like slaps it. Looks like he broke his neck.
So Patrick, do you want to pronounce that again? Time out. Patrick, do you want to pronounce that again?
Hamumbai.
What is it?
So Patrick, I'm going to spell something. Can you please pronounce it? Humbaba.
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 All right, Humbaba. And now, but now we got to do the control of this. Moira.
Moira.
That's the control of this experiment.
Bitch.
McTaggart.
Dumb bitch who brought about the end of the Krakoan age. Moira McTaggart. I hope I know.
You got it right. You said Moira. You got it right. Okay.
You said Moira.
Maybe you have maybe channeling your anger towards her is what helps you pronounce her name.
She sucks.
I liked his original pronunciation of Umbaba. Anyway,
by the way, Humbaba.
That's what I was saying. Humbaba.
Famously an enemy of the very first story ever written, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh and his partner Enkidu defeat Humbaba.
I'm so glad, Patty, Al, you bring this certain like level of class and weight.
I do. That's why I'm here.
That me and Patty would just be like, "Did you see the pretty pictures?" And we'd be like, "Yeah."
A quick side note too. In a world history class, my high school teacher pronounced Gilgamesh Giglamesh.
Oh,
and from that moment on, I choose to only say
that's
Gilgamesh.
The best.
Because
who was it?
I have a question about this, about Battling Boy. We're back on Battling Boy.
Okay.
Boy.
So, again, we don't get a lot of backstory here, but my assumption is that his father, who is basically Thor, has been around for quite some time as a probably immortal god. And I assume his wife is as well. And do you think this is the first kid he sent off?
I think it's implied
it's his only kid right now. But do you think it's the first kid that's why I feel like they don't care. I feel like they're just like, we've done this a couple hundred times.
No,
One of us is gonna come back at some point, and then he'll be cool like me. But I think
feel
he's just like,
pretty
get out of here.
that it's not their first.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Especially the way the mom deals with it seems to signal get out. And
the mom seems like she literally could not care less about what happened to this
Really? I feel like she loves him a lot.
No, she's like, OMG, it's your birthday. We're gonna throw you off this fucking ledge into this whirlpool portal. Bye.
I mean, the dad goes with him down off the ledge.
I don't know. She has a very sort of flippant, like glib outlook on the
She
whole
kisses
thing.
him on the forehead and says, "Oh, my son, my boy," and he's like, "Oh, mom, get out of here."
Look,
Like,
I don't know about you
like,
two, but I've kissed many people I didn't love in my lifetime. I don't know about you two.
I saw that as a sign of affection, and
Okay.
she's hoping that he will survive.
I mean, it was a sign of affection, but like she literally just like might never see him again and was like, toodles.
She gives him a little blankie.
I don't know. To me,
she gives him his blankie cloak and then pats him on the head and kisses him goodnight.
He says, and keep this cloak near you. It is more than just a normal cloak. It's like, could you fucking elaborate on what that means?
She doesn't have time. He has to leave this place. He has to leave Valhalla or wherever they're at before he turns 13. And the clock's striking.
I don't know. To me, the energy was like when you buy a new shirt and you kind of want to give away the old one, so you put it in a box and like put it on the sidewalk for someone else to take. Like that's the vibe I got from
Facebook
her.
marketplaced her kid.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I got when she was sending him off to sort of like, good,
man,
I'll miss you, love you.
I don't know. I got a little bit more from that, but I
didn't. I feel like she felt way more. I feel like she felt way more interested in the husband and him coming back.
She does.
The
seem
kid
very interested in the husband.
She's definitely dick whipped by that man.
She says, "Be careful, son."
There was a hunger and a thirst when she look at the two of them looking at each other. They
no, I mean they love each other. They've been in love for a million years.
I don't know if love is the right.
This is their 1700th kid they've done this to.
Look at that. I don't even know if love is the right word. I think they just want to.
Yeah, lust, whatever. Yeah, I mean, what do immortal gods care about? Really?
They are in lust with each other.
I mean, Paul Pope he can draw a sexy moment. You know, he's good at that.
Yeah, I mean, look. I just, without going any deeper into their relationship, that is a sexually active couple.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Big time.
Well, like I said, they've been together for God knows how many millennia, and this is not their first kid they've sent off the cliff into death. I wonder if that would have ever been explored. You know what's funny about that? I was going to say it kind of goes into what we've been saying the whole time. The pacing of the story is so odd in that the way he's shoved off into the story plot itself so quickly with so little explanation makes you feel like there's going to be more. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, that's kind of my problem with the end of it. It's like, it starts off so quick. It's like, here you go. And you're just like, all right, here we're going to go on an adventure. And then like nothing happens. And you're just like, okay, well, I guess volume 2 might go. Oh no, it's been over 10 years.
Yeah, it does seem like there's a lot unsaid. And also
it's like, they start so fast and so quick, and the plot is just like glossed over and you're shoved into it really quickly, and then the rest of the plot kind of peters out and you're just like, well, that's weird.
And Joe, going back to your Thor comment, I just want to point out, like, in their god world, they have these little teleport machines that they use. It's very Marvel, Valhalla, and Thor, kind of MCU Valhalla setup, where it's just sort of like techno magic.
Yeah, that dude that's doing that. He's the he's like the builder guy.
Yeah, he's sort of a Hephaestus like.
Yes, thank you. Yes,
artisan god thing, but it's very like techno magical looking, all of it. Yeah,
I feel like this volume was very much kind of like laying the foundation for kind of a big epic story, as we've been saying.
It would have been so good if it had kept going. Paul Pope, come on, man. What is
that? I like
disappeared.
Arcopolis was interesting too, because this is basically my favorite page of the whole book, but it's Aurora at her father's kind of memorial, and it's this sort of like brutalist Eastern Bloc monument to this guy.
Oh, it is kind of like a. Yeah, there is.
I thought Arcopolis visually was pretty interesting. it's kind of in the middle of a. It looks like a Mad Max wasteland. Like it's just kind of
yeah. It
desert
is.
and
The city
craggy
is sort of
mountain.
like in the middle of nothingness. It's very odd.
It's
Well,
a
It makes me
strange-
wonder what the rest of the world is like because it's very Earth-like. It's not Earth, but it's very Earth-like.
It used to be like Earth, and then didn't the monsters kind of show up like a few years ago out of nowhere?
Yeah, I think they said that.
They do
The-
mention that it's a recent development.
Well, the Hephaestus guy, I mean, even when they're picking out a planet for him to go to, he's like, what about this one? It's filled with heroes and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's basically like, this one's the Earth of, like, the Marvel Universe, maybe, you know, kind of, or DC. But they're like, this one's the one you all already know from comics, but he won't go there. Well, let's pick this one. And they, you know, they pick the other planet. But, like, he says it's a world built for heroes. And then and the mom is like, we sent so many heroes here. He's like, yeah, you're right. It's not the only one. And so, like, they send him to they pick a different one that's, like, very, again, Earth-like.
Again, but the mom, she's like, he'll have allies there. Let's throw him to the one place there are no.
It would be
heroes.
very, weirdly enough, kind of an Invincible situation. I would have imagined that Earth probably had a lot of Batman lookalikes and Iron Man lookalikes and Superman lookalikes on that planet.
Look, the mom is just trying to offload inventory. I think she's like, go to this other planet.
Yeah. I mean, I think she's just anxious to see if this is the one that comes back. Like, wouldn't you be if you
I guess
tried?
you want to find out.
If you, if you tried like a couple hundred times, wouldn't you be like, all right, let's see if this one works? I love you,
all right, but let's talk about Arcopolis. Okay, let's talk about Arcopolis. So Battling Boy gets
Back to
there, and we've
Arcopolis,
already kind of hinted at this a bit. But again, here's like a kind of a good panorama, but it's just sort of in the middle of this kind of
showing more
sort of southwest western wasteland. There's just this kind of barely industrial city. And when Battling Boy arrives, we've already kind of talked about this, but so the monster Humbaba is, or however you pronounce it, is terrorizing the town. The military,
there's like castle gates, but there's like military tanks, and there's, I don't know, it's a weird mix. And the kids playing soccer at the beginning that get attacked by the monster gang look like they're playing in like an Eastern European, like Spanish alleyway or something, you know, like kind of like a, you know what I mean? I don't know.
But also, for example, the Haggard West home looks like a New Mexico suburban.
Yeah, and then when he's running across rooftops fighting Humbaba, it's kind of like, it looks like Paris.
Also,
almost,
speaking
like
of the Haggard West mansion, I just want to call out Miss Greatly, the butler lady. I don't know how much time you all have, but I'd love to talk about her.
I mean, we can talk about her when we get there. We're not there yet. Let's talk about his t-shirts and his powers. Let's talk about Battling Boy.
Right. So Battling Boy's powers are t-shirt based, and those t-shirts have pictures of animals on them, and he can have the power of those animals. Not only that, he can commune with the spirit of the animals,
which we see later
that are in those shirts, and the animals we get to meet.
Yeah.
Well, right. That's a powerful animal. Yeah.
To go against Humbaba, but like he realizes quickly that his arms aren't strong.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
And I thought that was pretty cool. This is little bits like that I was like, okay, that's fun. It would have been very fun to explore that more in later volumes.
Well, in later volumes.
I'm never gonna not keep talking about that. Sorry.
And then he tries to grip. Well, the Griffin shirt gets ruined.
Yeah,
it gets ruined and destroyed. And Griffin was the best one. He even says it. Like, that was a cool shirt. And but the whole thing is that the Griffin is powerful but fragile. And so the shirt is fragile. But then he also talks to like Wise Elephant and Wise Fox. And actually, I did kind of enjoy the dialogue with the elephant and the fox, because they were kind of, he kept looking at them for guidance, and most of their answers were kind of like, we're not.
That was a cool bit.
Yeah. It's like, why don't you figure it out, kid? We're not really.
So when he first gets there, he's immediately in a fight. Then the mayor and all the town is like, you saved us all, even though it was his father. So when he finally gets to like his apartment that was apparently been paid for by his family, and they're all confused by that. They're like, I don't understand. How does he have a place to live already? I'm so confused by this. And it was like this weird, and then there's like a curfew too. So you're not allowed out at night. And he's like, yeah, I think I can make it. I'm all right. But when he gets to his apartment, he lays out all his t-shirts. So you kind of get a glimpse of like what he's got. And then, you know, he just kind of runs through them all. Is that when he talks? And then, so while he's trying to figure out how to survive without calling upon his father again, and how to either tell the truth about not actually killing that monster to the town or not, he consults like the fox and the elephant and stuff. And their conversation's pretty fun. You realize very quickly that the fox is just like, who gives a fuck? Lie to them, bitch. I'm a sly fox. Who gives a fuck? He's like, you're clever, but I need to talk to somebody smarter. And the elephant just seems disinterested in the conversation.
He's just pompous, disinterested. He's like, oh, I have all the encyclopedic knowledge of the world.
He's like, I know everything. I don't feel like talking to you about it.
So Badly Boy's like, what should I do? And he's just like, oh, just slay the monsters, man. That's right here. And he's done.
Yeah,
I like the
how can I do that? I can't cast lightning. He's like, can't you? Have you ever tried? Maybe you should try. See you later.
He does.
I gotta go. I'm sleepy.
They do set up kind of an interesting panoply. We have the T-Rex, Griffin, the Great Bull. We've got a wolf, an orangutan, a snake, leopard, lion. Like it's kind of an interesting little menagerie of
pterodactyl.
I'm saying that all seemed really interesting. The fact it was very Naruto going in talking to Kurama inside their little world.
Yeah, a little less.
They were kind of establishing
Kurama, but
a little less threatening. Yes, but they all had like different personalities and different aspects, and I thought that was very interesting. And I thought it was cute that you gave a 12-year-old boy his weapons are like underoos that he puts on with like it is like what a 12-year-old boy would wear, a T-shirt with an animal on it.
There's a lot of fun to it. Like
really
I said,
fun. That's why the fact that it just stops, I was like, what the fuck?
So he's a god from Valhalla who's going to this other Earth to do whatever. And all his shirts are based on planet Earth megafauna, which is a weird thing. Like, why are all his animals Earth animals?
Like I said, I think it's alluded to earlier when he talks about sending all the other heroes to Earth, essentially. Like, they've sent a lot of heroes to Earth. Like, maybe they interact with our Earth, quote unquote, a lot, and they wanted, like, I don't know, him to be challenged or something. I don't know.
I think Paul.
But again, if this is your 1700th child, maybe not.
I just think Paul Pope has explaining to do.
Also, like there's already so much that's not explained. Like I think if you were to make up animals for each shirt, everyone's gonna be like,
yeah,
fuck is this?
I mean, there's a griffin on there. Like, you know, that's not.
And they do. And look at the mayor's office. They have a little statue of a horse. So even in this planet, they seem to in Arcopolis, they seem to have Earth animals.
Yeah, so maybe that's
Maybe this is Earth.
Maybe it's just I mean, this is definitely an Earth-like planet.
Look at that! Look at that cloak! Like, look at that! That's
it's
classy.
It's just fantastic.
That's just great. Yeah. Little tassels.
I love when he gets to the mouse shirt and he's like, "A mouse? What were they?" And then he's like, "Who am I kidding? I'm the mouse." See, he's got some growing to do as a character. He's very, I mean, and I would have loved to see it when this came out. I was excited because, again, I like Paul Pope, and I was like, oh, okay, well, this is going to be fun, like, new, like, maybe, and I know Paul Pope's slower than some other artists, so, like, I wasn't expecting this to come out, like, Volume 2 would hit the shelves. I knew it would be, like, a year or maybe 2, but it's been 11.
Well,
and it's like,
frankly,
and the last, I looked it up after I started to read Aurora West's prequels and stuff, and theoretically, Volume 2 of this actually is coming out still.
Well, I gotta say,
it might actually be out soon.
But we might be looking at it the wrong way. Dude. Maybe he's just on George R.R. Martin's schedule.
Yeah, maybe
of releasing novels.
Like, so he did write the other volumes. He just he co-wrote it with other people, and then someone else drew it. So he's
very much like George R. Martin.
Yeah, he's like off to the side already with it, and just kind of like. But I guess he's, I don't know, proprietary with the Battling Boy like main arc itself, so he doesn't want anyone else to draw it, so that's why it's taken so long.
Yeah,
but when it's taking that long, it's like, I don't know. If you don't have the motivation to continue with it, then just say that. Just be like, I'm not. It's something that I really loved, I really wanted to do, and I don't feel like I have the, I'm too busy or I don't have the motivation to continue the story. But like I said, in theory, like, I think it might come out next year. Or later this year. I don't remember what article. I read a really recent article where he had mentioned it, basically, and I was like, really?
Well,
But-
now that we've talked this out, this is really a full George R.R. Martin, because instead of continuing the main series, he's spending time on prequels and side stuff that doesn't really move the story forward. And he spent 11 years between books. I mean, this is exactly what Martin did.
Yeah.
So Paul Pope about to be an HBO show billionaire.
Apparently.
I think that's the playbook. That's the playbook. Well, actually, yeah, Martin's probably not a billionaire. Is he a billionaire? How rich do you think George R. Martin is?
No way. There's no way he's a billionaire.
Not a billionaire.
No, he's not a billionaire.
But I'm sure he made good money off that show.
I'm positive he did. That's why he lost all motivation to continue writing.
Because why write when you can just be a portly author who's famous anyway and just cash those HBO? He's a large man. But yeah, just cash those HBO checks. All right, let's talk about the villains a bit. We haven't talked about the villains much at all.
I actually really enjoy the villains. They're super weird.
So there's
fun.
There's a few different levels. So we know that generally monsters showed up a few years ago, and they range everything from Humbaba,
giant Umbabas to the little
wolfmen and stuff like that.
The little weird zombie gang that attacks the children. Yeah.
Yeah. And also we go to this bar where we see kind of like werewolves and wolfmen. And I don't mean wolfmen who sell you furniture at gallery furniture in Duluth or whatever, like Wolfman and Donna.
That actually really reminded me about the Incal character. Remember the wolf head guy in the Incal?
Yes. Yes. It's very well. I mean, if we want to do a section on what about this reminds you of the Incal, we're going to spend 5 hours. Yeah. All of it. Yes. I mean, page after page is Mobius stuff. Right. But so we get introduced to this kind of underbelly of sentient monster people, but who are
essentially the monsters not only live underground, they have like basically it's what seems like their own city down there, and they just hang out in bars and just, they're having a good old time in a speakeasy, monster speakeasy underground apparently. Well, they capture children.
Kind of like the John Wick Continental universe. Like they have their own
it feels a lot like that.
Institutions. But then within all these monsters, there's a group of sort of hooded. I don't know if it's only the main one or all of them, but they're kind of vampire.
Yeah, they kind of look like vampires.
They are 100% vampires. It's hidden until the very end because one of them gets their hoods pulled off in the sunlight and he starts burning. And it's like, that's the big reveal is that gang is vampires.
But is it the whole gang or just one of them? I wasn't clear to me.
No, I think it's all of them. They're all drawn the same body type.
I think any of them with those, and that's why they have to go to the spider people to get like their clothes made, because the spider people can make the like UV resistant webbing or whatever.
And they also in their, and if you look at their costume, you know, aside from what's covered by hoods, the rest of it is kind of mummy wrapped. So they're fully, you know, the only thing that's exposed to sunlight is their eyes. And for whatever reason, their eyes don't burn up. That's
maybe a little bit of their hands. Yeah. And their feet.
But that's weird logic that their nails and eyes don't burn up. But Paul Pope, you can explain that. I'm going to write on my Reddit threads and complain. No, I'm going to complain on Reddit. Not this shit.
He doesn't have to explain it. I do like how there's a little bit of the city. I don't want to say corrupt, but clearly like politician-y.
Oh, corrupt! Mayor. No, definitely corrupt. Very clearly corrupt. Yeah, he's all about ratings.
Pure politician. Period. Yeah. But like, well, yeah, you're right. In the pure basis of just any politician, he's absolutely corrupt. But they try to change his name to Arco Lad. They have him sit next to some model to be like, this is his girlfriend. Look, he lives here now. And everyone, and he's like, what? Who is this? You know, kind of thing. And I thought that was kind of funny. But basically, the monsters set a trap for him because they were like, we got to stop this right away because we can't have another. We just got rid of Haggard West. We can't have another.
Yeah, this is so Haggard West. We mentioned Aurora, like her dad, Haggard West, died, was killed by this gang, this vampire gang.
Yes. Yeah.
Set up an ambush.
They had some weird laser weapon to like track him through the sky and blow him up, basically. And they try that on him, and it doesn't work very well. And the only thing he does wrong, and sadly, the only thing he does wrong with oh, by the way, we do see one little tiny moment of the capes coming into play with its mysterious power, because there's a huge explosion, and he throws his cloak over the girl that he's next to, and they survive like she's totally fine, you know, and then he. goes off to fight, kind of thing. And he's like, "It worked." And I'm like, "Oh fuck!" He had no idea. What if what if it's just a burnt corpse underneath his cloak? Oh shit! Oh, my bad.
Yeah, I don't think he knew what that was going to be.
Yeah, it's pretty. So
yeah,
he
because the mom
attacks
didn't
the
tell
guy.
him. The mom didn't tell him what the fuck.
Mom didn't tell him shit.
She was just like, it's
Mom didn't tell him
special.
shit.
Look at that. The cloaks. So the little shoulder tassels are little. Where is it? Sorry, here. It's like a little Shazam looking lightning bolt.
Yeah, no, yeah, they definitely are. Well, those are the clasps. So he has shoulder tassels aside from that.
And that's the
yeah.
look. Yeah, I know I don't want to spend this whole episode talking about the cape, but it's a
really cool cape.
It's a great looking cape. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, he griffins up right then, and then like that's when he like flies way faster than he was expecting. He smashes through a bunch of buildings and he ruins his griffin shirt, as you were saying earlier. But he does it to attack the monster dude that had shot at them. You know, with the same laser gun that blew up Haggard West, kind of thing.
And then that's when we learn, because he mentions, because again they rip it up because the griffin is strong but fragile, and that's when we learn that each of the animals have strengths but also weaknesses, and so then we kind of get a little. And there's another rule of how
again, and then so also and at the same time, Aurora has donned her father's Batman.
There she is. Going after Sadisto, the villain.
Rocketeer gear, and
I do like the visual of how her little Rocketeer pack works. Is just these kind of bulbs that just kind of emit energy.
You see you see a better shot of it earlier with Haggard wearing it, but other than that, like if it's from far away, the little antennas that have the little balls off of them that are like the jet propulsion part of it. When you're drawn from far away, he doesn't even draw the antenna part. He just draws the stream of energy, and I always thought that looked really cool. It was a really neat visual.
Oh, also, Joe,
it just kind of like being, chemtrails behind his jetpack kind of thing.
Also, Joe, earlier you mentioned the girl he saved. She's Miss Teen Arcopolis, bro. Look at her.
Oh yeah, she's a model. I said she was a model.
Look at
they stick him with a model, and he's like, "This is weird," and she's like, at least. So he's 12.
She's
and she's
definitely
at least
18.
17.
No,
maybe
she's
18.
Let's look at this panel. She's got to be 18 for that. That close up of her butt, she'd better be 18.
The point is, many years his senior, and he's like, okay. And I like the quick bit of they're like, you're Arco Lab now, and also here's your girlfriend, and also we're gonna comb your hair like Superman. And he's like, no, stop this.
Yeah, it's very political. Like, let me advertise you and use this to my political gain, kind of thing.
I had one comment about the vampire gang.
I want to talk more about that.
Oh, my only comment is the leader's name's Sadisto. Then there's Coil, who's like second in charge, and there's Nail, and then there's Brother Rum, and then there's Greg.
I thought was
Greg.
Well, just but that's why I was thinking that maybe only Sadisto was a vampire, because the others just had names like Greg and Coil and whatever, and I was like, okay, well maybe they're normal, but only one is a.
Or maybe they were all normal humans at one time, and they got turned into vampires, and he just didn't want to pick a new vampire name. He was like, I'm good with just Greg. Greg was my human name.
But it could be that none of them are. They might all just be ghouls to the actual their boss is the real.
I don't know if they're like
vampires
in the traditional sense, but they're definitely. And there's also another thing that we get like a hint of is like this Frankenstein type dude, and he seems to just kind of and he seems to be like his own thing within the monsters. And then again, we get like a little hint of what's going on there, with like there's going to be more story to come. That's my that's my one negative thing about this. This is a really fun book. It's just that it stopped. It
did stop. They also, and some of it's just Sadisto carries a chainsaw in a guitar case.
Yeah, he's very obsessed with his chainsaw too. He's like really proprietary. He's like, I'm the only one that uses the chainsaw. Because one of them is like, well, maybe I can buy a chainsaw off the spiders or something. Like, maybe we could both have chainsaws. He's like, no. The only one that gets a chainsaw.
But it's an interesting kind of I don't know if you all remember the Banderas movie Desperado, but that whole El Mariachi Robert Rodriguez stuff is like weapons inside of guitar cases is a big theme there. So it's kind of a
oh yeah, that's right.
Interesting callback to there. But right, but again, we just get the slightest insight into this criminal underworld, and they're sort of bribing these other monsters to help them take out Battling Boy, and we get this view of just this kind of chaotic, unorganized monsterverse that they all operate in. But we just don't get much more than just a glimpse. And then
Well, so the last little fight, there's a couple other monsters there that are helping out the ghoul gang, but like the last little fight, the last thing that happens is model girl gets kidnapped by the monster.
Miss Teen Arcopolis.
Whatever. And Aurora West does end up like jumping in and helping him. And the last kind of thing from his part of the story is the reveal. He does tell the truth to them, and he says, I can't shoot lightning bolts, and I can't face these monsters on my own, kind of thing. Which speaks to them like, I don't know, maybe a mini Justice League kind of thing with like Aurora West and him at least teaming up, let alone maybe gathering up other heroes that they can find or something to go fight the monsters and maybe get back Miss Teen Arcopolis. But it's just kind of, again, it's like that's a good bit. If I had volume 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and I would have been like, "Whoa, this is fun little cliffhanger." You know, like what's going on?
Well, you'll get them. They just come out 11 years at a time.
Yeah, I guess I'll be really, really old by the time I get volume 4. You know?
Yeah. Well,
even if it was just a trilogy and there was a solid 2 and a 3 coming, I would be patient and wait. But like, it's just one of those things where you're like, I don't know how long this is gonna be.
Yeah,
it broke my brain. Like, I think I had to finally go onto Reddit to find the answer. I was like, surely there's
there's more
to this. Like, surely he didn't just end it right here. Like, the amount of time that went into the character designs, the world building, how his powers worked, how Aurora West is like the technological hero and he's the magical hero, and then all the world building with where he came from and his parents, and then just to have all that laid out, like you've done kind of like all the hard stuff, and then like you just decided to stop. Like, I don't. Clearly, you had ideas of where the story was going, and then you just like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, but also I don't know the publishing aspect of it. You know, I don't know. I mean, sometimes maybe the publisher wasn't that enthusiastic about continuing, and I don't know how it worked. I remember, I mean, this is different because it was like a mainline DC thing. But when we were in college, I read this series called Breach, which had like a 10 or 12 issue run, and then just sort of ended, but not really ended on like wrapping up the arc in any real way. It just kind of like issue 12 and then just nothing. Because I guess it wasn't selling well and DC canceled it. And I think later with Infinite Earths, it was kind of melded back into like Breach was just a Captain Atom of Earth 69 or whatever. Forget it.
He was retconned.
But sometimes comics like, it just doesn't work. And they're like, you know what? You don't get next month's issue doesn't happen.
I think if I was to guess, I think I think he feels very like he feels ownership over this specific thing, and I think he doesn't want anybody else to draw and or write it. And maybe he's just busy doing other things. I mean, I know he does other things. He's active still. It's not like he's just not doing things, So like maybe he's just busy doing other things that aren't comics right now. That's kind of sad because it would be great to keep it going. I mean, I hope that article I randomly started to research into to try to figure out what was going on with that actually is true, and it's coming sometime soon because that'd be kind of cool.
Oh, 1 second, sorry, Joe.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you getting like any I'm hearing sort of feedback
a little bit
on like my right. It kind of sounds like, does this pass the Bechdel test? The Bechdel test.
The Bechdel test.
Does this pass the Bechdel test?
The answer is probably
no. But this one does. This does.
It does. Some sizable conversations between
the ever so muscular and lovely Miss Greatly and Aurora talk to each other about. I don't even know what they talk to each other about because I was only looking
about
at
her being a superhero, about
her
place in the world.
Joe, I don't know what they talked about because all I could see were Miss Greatly's shoulders in those thighs. I couldn't even pay attention.
You're going to mention those Chun-Li thighs.
She is built like a Mack truck.
She's also got a robot leg, so that's good. That's horrifying.
Well, that's whatever. We all have.
I didn't even notice that because I was so focused on her shoulders.
Yeah.
She's the Alfred to Haggard West's Batman, and she's awesome. Let's put it that way. We barely talked about her, but she's great.
Look at that. She looks good in a one-piece bathing suit.
Yeah,
I literally did not even realize.
You did not miss the fact that she does not have a leg?
I missed that.
I love that because, again, there's a lot of implications to, like, yeah, fair enough. There's a lot of implications to, like, the character designs that speak of or imply a history there, or more to that character that we will then eventually maybe find out about or not. But anyway, again, I did start to read Aurora West. It wasn't bad. It was just like, why aren't I reading Battling Boy Volume 2? Like, that's all I could think the entire time. I was just like, one, I was caught off guard because I didn't realize he didn't draw it. Two, I was like, because at least if he had drawn it, I'd be like, well, at least you have drawn something in the last 11 years, you know, kind of thing. But he didn't even draw it, so I was just like, okay, well, I don't know why he still hasn't done a Volume 2, but this is still good. It was good. It just wasn't the part of the story I wanted to read next, you know?
Yeah, so I guess should we wrap this up? I think we've already given our overall takes, basically.
Yeah, we can call it overall takes though, and start and have a less saying though. But
yeah, I'll go first. So my overall take is, honestly, I didn't really enjoy this.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know
Were you
both.
Surprised, Patty?
Well, all right.
Well, I mean, he's just a little bit.
I don't know why Patrick is losing his shit.
You by far had the most to say about.
Well, look, I
actually hated this.
I mean, look, I've got plenty to say about. I've got plenty to say about Hitler and Pinochet and Donald Trump, but I don't like any of those three people. Right. So I didn't really enjoy this. So the art, like, I will say, like, the art aesthetic, I love Mobius and all that kind of like heavy metal 70s stuff. I didn't mind the art style overall, like, fine. But I didn't think this as a whole was really worth reading. Even if you told me, oh, there's volumes 2 and 3, I probably would just kind of not bother reading. I just didn't. None of the characters really spoke to me. Nothing just. I didn't really feel like I wanted to follow up on any of these threads and read more about this comic. So I may don't recommend.
No, okay.
On Battling Boy.
Patty, you want to go?
Well, yeah. I mean, I can't recommend it because I was genuinely annoyed, like almost angry, when I realized it didn't like. It didn't even like end in a way where you could like be relatively satisfied with where it was. It really just like the rising action is happening and the climax is nowhere in sight, and they just ended it. I found Battling Boy pretty interesting. I found Aurora West interesting. They don't really interact that much. It's like they meet each other at the very end of this first volume, and I was looking forward to their dynamic. I thought the concepts were really interesting and clever. I enjoyed it overall. The art, sometimes I loved it. Sometimes it was a little bit too much going on the page. But overall, I would have definitely kept reading this if the story continued. But the fact that he just stopped, I mean, yeah, I am curious to know why there is no volume 2. If it was him just getting tired of it, or him getting busy, or if it just wasn't selling and there was no money or funding to keep making it. I don't know. But overall, it was one of the more interesting concepts. I mean, I'm pretty burnt out on superhero comics right now, and this is a superhero comic, but it's it's broken out of that.
It's a weird one.
Marvel DC continuity. So I was looking forward to seeing where it went, and even the monsters, like the vampire gang and how they interact with I liked how the monsters all had their own different little gangs, and they were trying to unite under one banner, but there were still offshoots that were kind of working not necessarily against them, but had no interest in like working towards a common goal. I feel like there was a lot of good groundwork he was laying out, and then it just stopped. So I enjoyed it, but I can't recommend it.
High five, Patrick. Both don't recommend. Look at that. Look at that.
I'm a huge fan of.
That's the most
Paul Pope's
awkward
art.
Zoom high five of history.
That's why Paul Pope was put onto our plates. Is my fault. I really enjoy his art. I could basically read this again, and I read it again with you guys, knowing that it didn't go anywhere. So, I mean, I barely remember the ending, but I knew it cut off in a weird way because it was 11 years ago that I read this. So when it was put on that maybe we should read this one, I was like, okay, I remember it kind of. And honestly, it had been so long, I didn't know if maybe a volume 2 was out that I wasn't aware of, kind of thing. So when I saw the prequels existed, I was like, oh, well, maybe he at least has worked on those, but he didn't really, other than like co-writing them. But I don't know. I really found it fun. I really like Aurora. I really like Battling Boy himself. There was some fun stuff laid out. I liked the monster designs. I liked where the ghoul, everything Patty was saying. I like where the ghoul gang was going. It was kind of starting the basis of like a very strong hero to villain relationship between the two of them, and then it just never kept going. So I'm gonna be a hard pass on reading Battling Boy in the future.
So
you cannot read this until
we all agreed.
Yeah, I think so if there is a Battling Boy Volume 2 and 3 in the next 22 years, I would say read it then. But until then, I would not recommend this book because it's just the first part of a story. It doesn't feel finished. And why would I ever tell you to read something where I didn't think it was ever going to finish the story? Yeah. So, I mean, like, although I had fun with it and I really liked a lot of the concepts that were introduced, and although the pacing had some issues, it felt like those could be resolved depending on how Volume 2's plot went or 3's plot went. Maybe those pacing issues would make sense at that point, like if you could read through the story, but there isn't any other story to read. So not a recommend.
So I think we all generally agree. The only difference is, even if there were volumes 2 through 10, I'd still say don't read it, and you all would probably.
Oh yeah, I would say. Well, I would say. So it's hard to say because I don't know what those volumes would entail. But like, there's a chance that volume 2 and 3 could continue a story that I'd be like, this is worth reading. But there's also what you're saying, where the volume 2 and 3 don't do that. So like, maybe eventually see. Maybe. Well,
until then, Couchers. Yeah, that was Battling Boy.
That's been Battling Boy, I guess.
Boy.
See you next time.
Good journey, Couchers. Good journey.
Is that what we're calling Couchers?
Couchers.
Couchers.
Mobius Couch listeners are Couchers.
From the crew of the Mobius Couches, don't read Battling Boy, although it's really good art. But don't read it. See you later.